Hello, friends. Welcome once again to the Perfect Bound podcast. This is a podcast all about anything and everything comic books and comics related, brought to you by the Panel Jumper and Comics Dungeon. This is episode 54 for February 22nd, 2016. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is Chris Casso.
Hello.
Nicole Lamb.
Hello.
And Mr. Cole Hornaday.
Hey there.
How's everybody doing today?
Great. Splendid.
Wondrous.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are trying something new today. If you haven't noticed by the sounds of our voice, we're not sitting in our normal spots around the table. You might not be able to tell that on the, by the sound of our voice.
First, not
Cole,
preferential treatment or anything.
I did just go down the line. All right. We're doing this thing where we're actually taping the show. We're videotaping it. We're trying something new. So if you're listening to this, but you actually want to see what we look like, you can go to the Panel Jumpers YouTube page. That's youtube.com/thepaneljumper. I think it works that way.
For all you lovely stalkers out there.
For all you lovely stalkers out there, we'll also post a link to this on the show notes at perfectboundpodcast.com. All right, so let's say hello to the camera, and then let's just pretend it's not even there. All right. Speaking of pretending things aren't even there, a little bit of a comic censorship in Florida lately. This one's
Florida, never.
I know. Florida man pulls comic due to it not agreeing with him. So this one summer's a comic that
Like indigestion or something.
it's a graphic novel by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki. It's actually pretty great from what I hear.
Yeah, it's really, really
It's
great.
won a number of awards. A Caldecott, I think, is one of the awards that it's won, and which doesn't normally go to comic books. And it was stocked in an elementary school library, and a third grader checked it out. And the mother of this third grader reported it to the school district, so they stopped stocking it in an elementary school because the comic is like, the publisher says, yeah, it's for like 12 to 18. Yeah.
Right.
So in one district, they pulled it from the elementary school, but then in another school district in Florida, they pulled it from both the elementary and the high school libraries. And I believe the librarian of that schools is claiming that is censorship. What do we all think of that?
Yeah, that second half, I would agree on the censorship part, because the other one made perfect sense. Just like, yeah, that was not the best call as to where to stock it, and needed to be a little bit better proofread, probably.
Well, what's happening is what is still really unfortunate is there's a stratum of our society who think that comic books are for kids, right, and they're not doing the research and they're not paying attention. And these things have been happening since the 80s, and people have been going to jail for it, and it's actually quite infuriating that there's this assumption that all comic books are, designed for kids, or it's actually infantilizing for the creators and the artists when you think about it. One thing that I took offense at in the article when I skimmed it was someone referred to the book as teen porn.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that was obnoxious.
I mean, that's uncalled for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
porn for kids.
Porn for kids.
Which
that's just grotesque.
I also think we need to stop treating teens like elementary school kids. There's a distinct difference. It's called puberty. It changes things. It's a game changer. And to put them in the same bracket, I think is wrong. And that's where I think the censorship comes in.
Sure.
This is something that middle school age on can read. No, it shouldn't be in elementary schools. That was a good call. But went a little too far, like the librarian said in the article. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think this year's we're going to get a lot of that just with Deadpool. Just the amount of children I saw at the theater, and I've been hearing going, and also the amount of kids wanting to get Deadpool comics right now, and parents just being like, sure, okay, whatever. It's just like, it's in his name.
I mean, we've seen that before in the store, though. That's not an uncommon thing. But with the movie, there has been a little bit more pull for folks to get it. So, yeah.
Do you get a lot of kids coming into the store looking for Deadpool comics, and you have to kind of steer them away?
And Deathstroke.
And Walking Dead.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they like the assassins.
Well, because they're getting bombarded with the media,
Well, we live in a post 9/11 world where militarized superheroes are the rage, which is really unfortunate, and it's overshadowed that which is good about, granted, superhero comics are male power fantasies for the most part, and that's always something that we're negotiating, and in a lot of comics we're doing it successfully. But I just have never been able to abide by Deadpool.
Dead,
Yeah,
whatever.
Bloodshot, deadlock,
Thank you.
death.
Well, because there was an era where gun-toting heroes, had a code, and that was the Western, and we don't really live with that code anymore in our storytelling.
Well, especially with mercenaries and assassins,
Right.
that's going to be a totally different ballgame.
And I'm sure that people responded the same way with the Clint Eastwood Dirty Harry films, to have this anti-hero with a .44 Magnum that can blow your head off, and we're revisiting that kind of thing now, but on a much grander scope, because it's touching us through television, through comic books, and through this blockbuster movie. It grossed more than... Did it gross more than Star Wars yet?
So, moving on to, we were going to talk about Deadpool.
Okay.
It actually broke the weekend record for an R-rated movie, grossing $132.7 million from Friday to Sunday.
I'm sorry, did we wrap up talking about the teen porn book?
Do you have something final to say?
I
about
really
teen
don't.
porn?
No, I got launched into Deadpool.
Pretty much,
so.
guys, don't
Sorry,
go too crazy, but also proofread what you're putting out there and, appropriately give it to the audience that it should be for.
And don't, listen to when the media just blows up about something.
Don't jump on
that.
the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, if you don't want your kid to read something, that doesn't mean everybody else's kid doesn't get to read that.
Right.
So, Deadpool.
Yes.
Kids shouldn't see it.
No.
Don't watch it. It's rated R for many reasons.
One of the things that I saw in all of the marketing for Deadpool was, Deadpool's great. Don't bring your kids. And you said you saw kids at the screening.
Yep.
Lots of them.
Were they with parents? Did the parents seem kind of sheepish after the movie?
Couldn't really get a good sight on that.
Yeah.
Well, we also stayed late because there were some things after the credits. So
Everybody left.
A lot of people just leave.
Post-credit scene. Good tip.
Yep.
Yeah. Double.
Double post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Now, is this the first time? I can't remember. Is Deadpool Sony or Fox?
I thought he was Fox.
Okay, so
Isn't he?
Isn't this
Because
the?
he's with the X-Men.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can't keep them straight. Sony's got Spider-Man, and
Fox has
and Fox has X-Men
because they have
Deadpool.
Colossus
Infinity
and all that.
Okay, all right. But have those film production companies been doing the end bits in the credits? Because that was something that was kind of the domain of the MCU films.
The X-Men stuff did with the Age of Apocalypse stuff that's coming, or the Apocalypse stuff that's coming.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But the Spider-Man didn't, I think. I don't recall Spider-Man.
That's because we all need to get out of there as soon as possible.
I blocked out.
we need to escape.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I watched it from home, and I think I still cut out of that. So
I don't think I did not see the second one.
neither did I. But
We're talking about the non-Sam Raimi ones.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Right.
the
I think we've
what do they call those? Amazing
The Amazing
Technicolor
Amazing.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So Deadpool, big, huge opening weekend, actually changing the game going forward because it has now been revealed that Wolverine, is it 3, the final solo Wolverine movie?
Sounds right.
Is going to be an R-rated movie. So we'll actually see blood splurt out from people when Wolverine sticks his claws in them.
That's great.
I couldn't remember
That's
if
just great.
I thought
Maybe
that
he'll say
last
us
one
when.
they did that too, but
So I have to say, in regards to blood, thank you, because when you cut somebody, they bleed, and when you take
Exactly.
that out, and it's not showing a realistic picture. I know it's fantasy, I know it's that, but there's so much violence, and
Right.
we have a lot of shootings in America. Like, I don't know. I feel like there might be a connection to this desensitization. So I'm fine with blood. I'm fine with making things rated R. You know what you're getting into, and you're actually gonna see something that
Yeah.
way. So so great. Good job, guys.
All right, so that's a vote in
vote for you.
favor of
That's a vote for yes.
R-rated movies going forward. What should is this a good thing? Is this a good trend? Should all these comic book superhero movies go a little bit more adult, a little bit more darker?
not all.
No, but
pick and
having
choose.
having a spectrum.
Yeah.
Having things to choose from. You definitely have all age stuff, have things that everyone can go to. It's great to have families geek out together. I think that's important.
Yep.
But also have adult stuff too, because
Yeah.
we're not. There's
Yeah.
a big adult fan base, clearly.
I just think it's funny
So.
because this trend was facilitated by the dollar sign and not whether or not it was either appropriate or the movie called for it.
Or something of artistic merit.
Exactly. Because conventional
We're talking
wisdom.
about Deadpool.
Yeah, I know.
Not,
But we're also, I'm sorry, Ben, finish your thought.
Conventional wisdom says R-rated movies don't do well in the theaters.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
good point.
why-
So we're getting a new message on that.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about the spectrum of literature because comic books now fall into the domain of literature in my little brain. And going back to the censorship of the book in the high schools, it's like, well, you're just a fool if you refuse to acknowledge that this form, this medium falls into a literature spectrum, the way Catcher in the Rye would, or To Kill a Mockingbird, or any of those works of literature that still fall under incredible censorship scrutiny. Guess what? Comic books have always, not always, but within this generation of comic book readers, they most definitely do, and you need to mature your perspective on them in that light. And that's why I find that sort of thing really infuriating.
Now, don't sell yourself too short. That came out of more than just your small brain. That came out of a very adequately sized
My medium-sized brain that I spent $50,000 on
Very wrinkly brain.
plumbing. What's that? Yeah, it's
Very
incredibly wrinkly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lose things in there.
It's good storage.
That wins.
Yeah, put all the quarters in there.
All right.
Laundry.
Oh, good idea.
So,
good idea.
speaking of movies,
There we go. Moving on.
Yeah.
Yes.
a very interesting thing came out of Warner Brothers lately. Apparently the master plan for the DCU hinges on the success of Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Well, yeah, we waited so long
There's-
for something.
There's got to be another word for unfortunate. I need my thesaurus, because when I read that blurb, I'm like, really, people? Really? I mean,
It makes sense, though, because, we've waited so long for them to try and get their shared universe off the ground that this has to be the jump point. This has to sink or swim,
Right.
And it's the two big boys, right? So if they're not going to float the boat, then what is?
Right.
And I also feel that as much as I'm not looking forward to it, it has a good chance to swim.
Yeah.
Because like the last trailer, I had a lot of customers looking forward to it because the Batman fight sequence is like pure video game.
Okay.
And that's the demographics they're going for.
There's actually
You
a
know?
screenshot somebody posted online from the trailer, and it looks right out of from Arkham Asylum.
And that's Snyder for you.
It's probably completely computer generated. That's why. An interesting quote that came out of so apparently this reporter Drew McWeeny from HitFix, I think, said there's Warner Brothers said that the movie will have to make $1 billion for people to keep their jobs, which those are for some pretty high standards.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Didn't we? One of us shared something on our Facebook group where somebody posted pictures of like the Avengers, and then the next they post pictures of like Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman. They're like, oh no, Star Wars. They said they were going. Dawn of Justice was going to outsell Star Wars, right?
well, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
There's confidence, and then there's just words. I don't know.
Words.
Well, what I think is really unfortunate and frustrating is that Warner, unlike Marvel and ostensibly Disney, they've never paid attention to their audience base. They've never really they look at it on a superficial level. We're going to give them a video game, and I'm me. I'm an old man, and I get grumpy about losing touch with the source material of the essence of what those characters were and what made them essential and what made them iconic. And I look at the trailers for Batman, Superman, Dawn of Justice.
The people versus.
Yeah, the people versus
BVS
and
DOJ.
I'm not seeing the source material. And in doing some research for a Panel Jumper episode, I was combing through covers of Batman comics from the 80s and then, to the present, and how that's changed and how Batman is, there's nothing detective about Batman anymore. He's this militarized being with supposedly non-lethal weaponry, but he still is. He's clad in body armor. He drives militarized vehicles, and if he's not killing his assailants, he's getting darn close. And where's the detective? Where's the detective? I don't see the detective anymore, and I think that's sad because those were intriguing stories that sparked my imagination and thousands of other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Batman has changed. He's evolved, and he may get a little bit more exposure. Ben Affleck's Batman may actually get his own movie because coming out of this this report from the Hit Fix reporter, he says that Warner Brothers is very nervous. If Batman v Superman doesn't do well, they may actually scrap the Justice League Part 1 movie and substitute, which is slated to come out in 2017, and substitute a Ben Affleck Batman solo movie.
Mm-hmm. I think they'll still make plenty of money off this one. They'll still want to do a Batman no matter what. That's like just cashing a check in. But I think this is also cashing another check in. You get Flash in there, you get Aquaman, you get all that pieces together.
Right.
So yeah,
cool.
So are we talking about the DC rebirth this episode, or are we saving that for later?
Well, what a great segue. Let's talk about the rebirth. Actually, as we record this,
the next thing.
Wow, I've got like the seventh sense going on.
DC's rebirth is not a reboot. There's actually an announcement coming out tomorrow at Comics Pro, clarifying what all this means. So, what do we think it means? What is a rebirth?
I don't care.
My thoughts exactly.
I'm done.
And how many DC readers or former DC readers are of that, philosophy? It's like, dude, you've worn us out. We don't care.
Desensitized.
Yeah.
Between the two big guys, a lot of people are fatigued and have been fatigued over the last few years.
With the new 52 launch years ago, they said it's not a reboot. No, it's a soft reboot. That's the thing. Everyone's afraid of using the word, and they make it into something worse than what the word actually means. At some point, if they were just honest with us, because that's one of the tricks. As an example, for Free Comic Book Day, we get to order in advance as a retailer, and we get to see what's coming out. They don't show us what's coming from Marvel or DC. They put down classified. And you're like, but I'm going to be spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
That may tickle the fancy of the fans, but not the retailer.
The fans don't even see that original notation. It's in my catalog.
Yeah.
So it's just like, no, you tell me what I'm ordering so that I can push it on people. So there's just this general sense of them not wanting to share or tell, because I think they're always paranoid about like internet leaks and not being original on the internet. It's just like, no, just tell a good story, please. So stop trying to dress down or dress up what a reboot is.
So you're telling me that shoulder shrugging is not part of your job description?
My shoulders are like broken by now.
What's going to be happening in Batman?
Yeah, exactly. No, somebody asked me today, like, what this new Marvel crossover that just came out, again, the Pleasantville standoff Avengers, whatever. And I was just like, the preview that I ordered from didn't even tell me significantly what I'm ordering. So,
all right. Outhousers.com has their current counter has 26 days since DC did something stupid. Do you think this counter will be reset tomorrow?
Good chance.
All right, we'll check in.
We should get a little.
We need a crazy 8-ball.
Yeah, we should get a panel. We should get a perfect bound 8-ball.
Yes.
Just,
all right.
Will the third issue of Dark Knight 3 ever come out?
Chances are good.
DK33.
DK33.
We'll talk about that a bit later.
Yep.
And finally, in the news, Afterlife with Archie and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina are finally coming back.
Yay!
But that's what they said last time.
Well, do we believe them this time? Maybe
There's been so little joy in this episode. Chris, just let's have a buoyant moment.
No mention of who the third title is going to be. When the publishing company was announced for the Archie horror imprint, they teased a third title, and they wouldn't say who the third title was. We talked about this last year sometime, and I could not find. I don't think they even know who this third title is going to be. Maybe it's just like stay tuned. Maybe it'll be someone else. So, but it's finally coming back, and we're all excited about that because we all like.
Do we know if it's going to be part of the a variation of the Riverdale gang, or because
something else,
Archie
maybe
had a superhero line and they had a horror line, and
they've been relaunching the superheroes too.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
All right, so that's the latest news that we're going to talk about. Let's move on to Book Report. And Cole, let's start with you.
Well, Chris, what did we want to...
Sure.
Okay.
Or Cole and Chris.
Chris and I have decided we're going to do a little bit of tag teaming because we seldom discuss what we're going to review beforehand, but this time we did. So we're going to talk about... you've got the first issue. I've got the second issue.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about...
Our powers combined to form 2 issues.
we're going to talk about DC's DK3, also known as Dark Knight 3, The Master Race. Supposedly written by Frank Miller, but most definitely written by Azzarello, drawn by Kubert, Jansen, and inks by Anderson.
Kubert?
Yeah. Yes, Andy Kubert.
Oh, okay.
Son of Joe. Well, there was a boatload of hype over these books, and initially, or over the series rather, and initially, well, let me double back. When I was a kid, I loved the original Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight. It was a pretty groundbreaking book. But as I've grown up and matured and my vision of reality has shifted, I look back on it in an entirely different light. The sequel, what was that god-awful thing called?
Strikes Again.
Yeah, Batman
DK2.
Strikes Again was insulting to anybody who cracked open the cover, and it was. And I remember reading it 3 times and being profoundly puzzled by what was supposed to be happening and what it was supposed to say. And then I met someone at a comic book con who was a friend of a friend, and he said, "Cole, all Frank Miller's doing is insulting his readers. He's making fun of fanboys, and it's relentless. And the problem is they don't get it." And he's just rolling with that. And that's the way I've kind of looked at Frank Miller since then, is that sadly, I don't think he respects his readers, and maybe he never has. And he actually may review them with a bit of disdain. So when this book, and also in the shadow of the
Holy
Terror, which we've hacked away at, and whenever we had the opportunity over the last year or so, I didn't have any hope for this book. And I also was kind of concerned that it was going to be another money grab the way Before Watchmen was. Well, I'm happy to say that I don't feel about DK3 as I did about Before Watchmen. And trust me, friends and neighbors, I read every blasted one of those books.
Now, I will say that I feel a little bit differently, and I think it's almost a worse money grab than Before Watchmen.
Well, yeah.
For a different reason.
As a retailer, and why don't you fill us in on why you feel that way?
So, as part of the hype machine, they wanted to, DC took a big loss in sales this past year. So they needed to recoup somehow. And they figured, Batman, Frank Miller. There's still equity in Frank Miller's name. But we need to guarantee to get the retailers behind this. So they did something that they don't often do, which is open it up to retailer exclusive incentives, which means that a comic book store could buy in to get a cover that is unique only to them. And then they could sell it for whatever they want online and make bank. So
was it a cover for specific shops, or was it just cover?
Yep.
Wow. So you could have had your own Comics Dungeon cover.
Yep. That no one else could carry.
Wow. Okay.
Now, once you open up the first issue, there's a listing of cover artists. There's over 50 cover artists. That's because there's over 50 of these exclusive covers.
Got it.
And the thing is, retailers had to order a bare minimum amount of those. And this is an expensive comic. I forget the number. It's a lot.
But it was over 100.
Yeah, it was probably more than $10,000 cost per store.
Oh, Jesus.
So by that and to be allowed to do that, you had to order a minimum 100 copies of this cover that I'm holding. So they artificially boosted their numbers quite a bit. So on that side, I do believe it's a full money grab.
Okay.
That happened to have content that didn't make my eyes vomit. So that's a plus.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that a benchmark for you, making your eyes vomit?
Yeah.
Now, to the story.
Right. Sorry.
To the story. I read the first one, and I read it, and I'm like, I feel like I'm reading an Elseworlds book from back in the 80s and the 90s. And, Elseworlds books, and if you're not familiar with Elseworlds, following the success, the grotesque success of the original Tim Burton Batman film, DC started super duper marketing their Batman comics. So they started giving you Batman in different contexts. Batman in the Roman era. Batman is Tarzan. Batman is Green Lantern.
Civil War
Superman is
Batman.
Civil War Pirate Batman. We had every possible variation of Batman, and they did darn near every one of them.
And some of them were brilliant.
And some were okay, but most of them were terribly mediocre.
Yeah.
This is a terribly mediocre Elseworlds book. Yeah. It's beautifully drawn, but there's nothing new happening in it. And you don't even get a story until about the last 4 pages of the second book?
Yeah, because even then there was like some really cliche things happening there.
Oh, terribly. But one of the more infuriating things about this book is, Chris, tell the ladies and gentlemen.
Now, you said like there's beautiful art in number 1. I disagree, sir, about the middle sequence.
Yeah.
Because Frank Miller kind of drew it. I don't think he did. I think it's a lie. I think that actually Klaus Janson finished like some light sketches. So
what's happening is they've done this little mini comic that's inserted that feature characters in the Frank Miller Dark Knight realm of reality. It breaks up the continuity. It breaks up the through line of the story when you're reading it, and has. If it's a subplot, it's a gratuitous subplot that just distracts you from what's going on.
Right.
It's like a DVD special feature that just kind of pops up in the middle of the movie.
Exactly.
Yes,
Thank you. Yeah, it's not even
an
Easter egg. It's like an armadillo.
Yeah. I don't know what that means, but I'll agree with you.
Yeah.
I tried to get an egg-shaped thing. It's a cassava melon in the middle of your comic book.
It don't belong there.
Now, part of the other problem with all this, too, is it's $6 for 40 pages.
Tell them about the hardbound.
The hardbound is
What about the hardbound?
Yeah, it's like $12 for 40 pages.
So they're individually printing these single issues as hardbound editions for twice the price.
Yeah.
So, again, the money grab. Here's the unfortunate thing, is that I will probably read this to the bitter end.
If it comes out.
Yeah.
Because as we speak, number 3 is a little delayed.
Yeah, and it'll probably be very delayed.
And the DK2 had a huge delay between number 2 and 3, which was murder for retailers.
So I'm not even going to bother to rate it. I can't even say I'm intrigued with the process because I feel a little bit victimized as a reader, and I feel that what little credence there was to the original Frank Miller Dark Knight book is being demolished by stuff like this, and it's just sad. I think this is a sad time for DC.
Maybe we can just agree, DK3, it exists.
All right.
Awesome.
Dark Knight 3, it's a thing that exists.
It's a thing.
All right, Nicole, what about you?
All right. Well, after that sadness, I'm going to bring a little light
Yay!
to the world. I did finally read the Kanan the Last Padawan.
Oh, excellent.
The first trade of it, and I have to say, after Force Awakens, I just jumped on the Star Wars train so hard, and I'm collecting trading cards now.
I'm petting her little head.
I'm watching Clone Wars. I've rewatched all the other movies. Yeah, so I'm just so on, and so this was really great because this comes out of his story comes out of Order 66, which is where the clone troopers turn on the Jedis and kill all of them. So this is him first. It's just his backstory basically, and he's from the Rebels cartoon show, which I haven't watched, but you have.
I love it,
and you really love it. So I'm jumping in with no context of who he is.
Okay,
and it's fine. You don't have to watch any of the stuff. You get his whole story. It's him with his teacher, and everything goes down. Some of the clone troopers that he was hanging with, when they turn, they are hunting him down, and he gets away for a long time, but he'd never been on his own before. He doesn't know how to survive. He doesn't know how to take care of himself, nothing. And a smuggler takes him pretty much under his wing and helps him out and teaches him how to be a smuggler and all that stuff. So you get all of his backstory. It's written. I usually do that. Let's see. It's written by Greg Weisman, and the artists are Pepe Larraz.
Jacopo Camagni?
Yes. Anyway, great team on this. Really solid. Totally recommend picking it up. Would keep reading it too, and I'm eventually going to watch Rebels because I'm Star Wars crazy. Yeah.
Well, see, I love that this is what is happening, is that The Force Awakens has informed how we feel about Star Wars and the prequels, and now we have this retroactive affection for those things, and that's what I kept hoping to happen through the course of the prequels and they're being released, because it was just one, disappointment after another after another, and now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say,
it's reinforming how we see them.
I felt like meh about Star Wars. Like, I enjoyed it. I could take or leave it. I was very neutral. I guess meh isn't neutral, but I was. So Force Awakens actually got me really interested in the mythos. Mm-hmm. Something about it just sparked something for me, and I get it now.
Now you understand why I've been wasting all my time and money.
All right, Nicole, the fan awakens.
The fan awakens. Yay! Yes.
All right, I'm gonna go next. I get here early because I like to get the good parking, but also that means that I have time to mill about in the comic shop and read a random comic. And so the last couple of times I've just picked up a random comic, not knowing anything about it, and thought I would read it. Today I picked up Romeo and Juliet and Guns. It's from Emmett Comics. It is written and created by Emily Dell, art by Molly Elizabeth Helms, and colors by CC De La Cruz. I'm not going to read everybody, but I thought it was going to be more along the lines of like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies,
sure,
where they actually take the known quantity and just like add something to it. This is not that. It's a slightly different. It's a bit more modernized. Romeo and Juliet, or as they're called, Roman and Joe in the comic, are still from warring families. They don't get along. In fact, Joe is attempting to assassinate Roman and somebody else that he's with. I didn't quite get that part because I didn't read it too close. I just quickly read it. So maybe this isn't fair, but my apologies if Emily or Amalia are listening to this. And then through a series of unfortunate events, they get trapped in this collapsed building, the basement of this building, and surprise, they fall for each other. Or maybe since they're down there for a number of hours, they awkwardly initiate intimacy, and then they're rescued, and that's the end of issue 1. So once I was over my initial sort of, I don't want to say like disappointment that it wasn't like an Elizabethan mm-hmm. era with guns mm-hmm. story.
You mean like the Baz Luhrmann movie?
Oh yeah, see, I never saw that. Did that have guns in it?
Yes, no sword fighting. They had guns. Yeah. John Leguizamo, I think.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so I guess it's a good thing this isn't an adaptation of the Baz Luhrmann film. Leonardo DiCaprio was in that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Still haven't seen it.
And isn't Scarlett Johansson or
no? Claire Danes.
Claire Danes.
Claire Danes. Right.
So another ginger.
It's my time.
So Romeo and Juliet and Guns. I think it's decent. I think it's good. I'm probably not going to read the rest, but it was.
Verily, do they turn their household's rancor to true love?
And to find out that, you'll have to tune in to episode 2 or read issue number 2. So that's Book Report. And that's our show. But before we go, I'd like to tell you that the Perfect Bound podcast is brought to you by The Panel Jumper. See everything Cole Hornaday and I do at thepaneljumper.com, as well as Comics Dungeon at 319 Northeast 45th Street here in beautiful downtown Wallingford, which is where we are at the moment.
Now you get to know what it looks like.
Yeah. And or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at comicsdungeon.com. Please send us an email at perfectboundpodcast@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes or any RSS reader of your choice. And with that out of the way, friends, get your quiz hats on. It's quiz time. This week, the quiz questions come to you from me. All right.
Didn't know who was on deck.
We've been talking about reboots. We talked about how DC's Rebirth is not a reboot. And here are 5 SAT-type questions regarding Hollywood reboots. Fill in the blanks. Number 1, Spider-Man is to Tobey Maguire as the Amazing Spider-Man is to blank. Chris.
Garfield.
Yes, sir, Andrew Garfield. Number 2, Batman is to Tim Burton as Batman Begins is to blank. Chris.
Christopher Nolan.
Yes, sir. Number 3, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan is to Ricardo Montalban as Star Trek Into Darkness is to Blake Colhordaday.
Dominic Cumberbatch.
Almost.
Cumberbatch.
I'll give it to you. It's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberplatch.
Number 4.
Humperdinck Funker.
Engelbert Humperdinck. Number 4. Superman is to Marlon Brando as Man of Steel is to blank. Who played Jor-El in Man of Steel?
Crow.
Yes, sir, Russell Crowe.
Russell
And
Crowe.
finally, 1978's Battlestar Galactica is to Dirk Benedict as 2004's Battlestar Galactica is to blank.
Katie Sackhoff.
Yes, sir, Katie Sackhoff. Good job.
I know Rachel Terrell would be really ticked at me if I didn't know that. So.
All right. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. If you did, you can find us on YouTube. Search for us. It's in the show notes. And we will see you next week.